Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished author and expert in project management from Belgium, Mr. Antonio Nieto Rodriguez. Antonio, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Ashutosh. It's a pleasure to be here in your podcast. Very popular, I know, Brand Called You. So I'm really looking forward for a discussion. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Antonio is an HBR author, and you can see his book behind him. He's a world expert in project management, a PMI fellow, the past chairman of and founder of Projects and Company, co-founder of the Strategy Implementation Institute. He's an author of a book titled The Harvard Business Review Project Management Handbook, which, as I said, you can see behind him, and 4 other books. He's the creator of concepts like the Project Economy and Project Manifesto, and he's a co-founder of the Strategy Implementation Institute. So, Antonio, let's talk about project management. What goes into managing a project successfully?
Well, it's a great question. I think it's interesting because it's one concept that we all do. We do all projects, right? But in our personal lives, at work, non-for-profit, public sector, but yet we struggle with the concept of project management. It's something that is not attractive. It's not appreciated by senior leaders. It's not where they will put their money. They prefer innovation. They love strategy. And so I've been struggling or I've been fighting to make sure that everybody understands project management, that gets the fundamentals about project management so that everybody can use them personally, but work at the company level to deliver projects better. And I think the beauty about projects is not that they deliver projects, but they make a better world, right? So that's my passion and my hobby. And that's what I think project management is all about, creating value, not just financial, but to make a better world.
Amazing. And, you know, we've seen so many projects that are mismanaged and never meet their delivery schedule.
Well, about 75% of the projects, 70 to 75% of the projects don't deliver all their benefits or are delivered late, or which is huge, right? There's very few professions where the failure rate is so high. I don't know many professions where 7 out of 10 activities fail. This is huge.
Wow. And for the purpose of your study, how did you define a project?
Well, projects, that's one of the challenges. Great question, of course. A project is something that you have a start and an end. There needs to be an end. And you want to change something. You want to solve a big problem, not the small ones. Smaller programs, you don't need a project. Or create something new. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So I would keep it like that. It's start and end. You want to solve and create something new. And another big characteristic is that it requires multidisciplinary skills. So it often requires skills from the whole company, right? It's not that you're working in operations and you just work with operations people, or finance, just finance. Projects require that mix and diversity, which we're not used to. So that makes it more complicated and more nice, of course, nicer.
Very interesting. So, you know, when I was reading about you, you said that you transformed project management into one of the central issues on every CEO's 2030 agenda. Help me understand this statement with an example.
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges that I come across is that companies have way too many projects. I would argue that most of the companies today and CEOs, they don't know how many projects they have. They don't know. And if we say, I didn't say that, but the Harvard Business Review chief editor said, your projects are your future. So if CEOs don't work on their future, which today is very different future than 6 years ago, right? The future 6 years ago was maybe 10 years down the line, 5 years. Today, your future is in 6 months. So I think in order to translate and keep alive and create a new value, you need to master projects. You need to change almost every fundamental in the organization, from structure, from culture, from competencies, from rewarding systems, from a very hierarchical structure to a more flat organization. And so that's what I say, it's one of the most important issues in the CEO's agenda. If you do that, you will be for sure struggling and maybe bankruptcy.
Amazing. And how does one determine accountability for project management?
Another great question. I think you, Ashutosh, you are an expert.
Learning from you. Learning.
Accountability in operationals, in hierarchical structures, traditional structure, it's easy, right? Every department has a head, every business unit has a CEO or responsible. So that was the past. When we talk projects, the accountability is shared, right? And often you see, okay, who's accountable for this project? And you would say, well, the board. And it's funny when I ask who's the accountable of all the projects in the company, they say the CEO. Yeah, but how can it, the CEO is delegating, so somebody else have to be. So I think that's one of the challenges, is making sure you define accountability. And there has been a big misconception in project management where you always thought the executive is the accountable, right? And then the project manager is just delivering the project. Well, I'm challenging that too. I say, if you have a great project manager, that person should be feel accountable for delivering the value, not the project on time and on budget, the value of the project. So I think accountability is a long topic, but it's fundamental. So I recommend that you make it very clear. In projects, you need to make it very clear. And it might vary throughout the life of the project, but great point, a key issue to take care when you're dealing with projects.
Very interesting. So, Antonio, when you were the global chair of the Project Management Institute, help me understand the role of a specialized project management professional. And do you see this as a C-suite role in the future?
Well, yes. So I was chairman of PMI, the Project Management Institute. It has today, I think they've reached more than 700,000 members, and they're in around 200 countries. It's a huge community, one of the largest. And indeed, they develop best practice. They do the certification if you want to become a project manager. I don't think it's becoming a project manager exclusive to PMI or the associations. I think I've seen very good project managers who didn't have a certification, but did understand how the complexity of projects, the need for leadership. So for me, what it's important is that you build a good fundamentals, that you understand what makes a project work, right? What are the 6-7 elements that you need to think about? In my book, I have a project canvas with 9 elements. If you have these 9 elements in place, your project will be more successful. So I do think that PMI does a lot of work in spreading the word, in trying to build competencies, in letting people develop themselves. So great stuff there. For me, absolutely, to your second question, to the point that I think the role of the chief operating officer, I'm sure you have a lot in India, it's dead. It's a dead function. And because the size or the scope of operation is highly automated today, you don't need the people. Most of the people in companies are working project-based. So I'm seeing a new role coming into this space called Chief Transformation Officer or Chief Project Officer, which will be kind of coordinating the 1,000 projects that you are currently running. So definitely a big change and a place on the table in the C-suite.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And what is the linkage that you see between strategy and project management?
Well, it's fundamental. It's almost the same coin, right? Two sides of the same coin. Some people claim that strategy is all about projects. I disagree. I think there is a big connection, of course, when you say, I want to become digital, I want to become more sustainable, I want to increase diversity, I want to grow. This leads obviously to ideas and projects. and that you need to make happen to get there. But you should not forget also that you have a lot of people working on the day-to-day activities, business. They want to contribute in strategy too. I think strategy is something that is every employee in the company needs to feel that they're contributing to the strategy. But projects, absolutely. So if you say we want to be more sustainable and there's no projects behind, you will never become more sustainable, right? So I think projects, it's the action, is making you the changes to deliver the new strategies, the new vision, and the new goals. So that's the biggest connection for me.
Okay. Again, as I was reading more about you, it was interesting to read that, we can actually bring project management techniques into managing our personal lives better.
Yeah.
Help me understand this with an example again, if possible.
Well, personal life, I think it's all about projects. I have one technique, for example, at home with the family, that if somebody has an idea, one thing that I think we can change very quickly, but engagement in projects is a big issue, right? It's if you have people motivated, hungry to win for a project, that project has big chances to succeed. There will be challenges, but one of the challenges is that people are appointed, right, to project. People say, okay, congratulations, as from tomorrow you work in this project, and but nobody check if you're interested, if you have time. Often it's on top of everything. So I say to senior leaders, listen, the best way to get people on board is asking for volunteers. So next time you launch a project, the first thing you ask is who wants to volunteer. And the people who volunteer, they already see a connection, right? And I say, senior leaders, if nobody wants to volunteer for your project, don't launch it, right? That's correct. You don't need a business case. You just make it very simple. So the same at home. If somebody has an idea, do we want to do this project together, and nobody volunteers at home, don't do it. It's
not a good idea.
Right? It's who wants to join? Who wants to volunteer? It should be exciting to launch a project, right? So use that. Who wants to volunteer? And if you don't get support at home, don't do it.
Amazing. So my next question relating to project management, Antonio, is that, it's about government projects. Government projects in almost every country in the world are notorious for their delays and cost overruns.
Notorious.
What can be done to improve these, so that public money is spent better?
I think that's another big issue in my head. I think one of the whole system is not suited to deliver projects on time, on budget. Some of these projects who have been really late and have been very successful over time. One of the best example is the Sydney Opera House, right? Which was delivered 10 years later and 100 million more expensive, but after 1 year. So sometimes it's not the biggest issue. However, I think the whole system where you have companies pitching for a project, it leads to lower budgets, right? You want to win, and pricing is one of the most important criteria. So no wonder that most of the contracts are assigned to the lower price, and then there's surprises. So for me, if we want to really do projects better, it has to start from the license, from the when you start the project, right? When you go and for a public tender, that you accept not just the price as the most important part, which is important, but it's more about the accuracy of the estimate, challenging more. And I think that would solve a lot of these issues with delivering projects late and on time. I do think that that's probably the most important problem we have in public projects, is the beginning, the licensing, the tendering, and not go for the cheapest offer, go for the best one, the one that delivers more value.
Fantastic. So now let's talk about your book, Harvard Business Review, Project Management Handbook. Tell me about this project that you undertook to write the book.
Sorry, a very good question. And I'm not great. I take a lot of time to write books. And English is not my first language, and I have quite a lot of things going in parallel. I had published 2 books in 2019. I said no more books for the next 5 years. But I had been pitching to HBR for maybe 10 years that they had to do something on project management because the latest book in project management from HBR was like 10 years old. Okay. And it was not good at all. It's not something that you could give anybody to learn project management. It was bad. So I always thought, how come the most influential business and leadership publication in the world doesn't care about projects and project management? It's all about, again, innovation, strategy, entrepreneurship. And but why? How can we get this thing happening? It's through projects. So I had pitched them. I'm kind of very perseverant in selling the value of what we do. And after finishing the second book in 2019, I got the call say, hey, we want to refresh. We want to review. We want to launch a new. And I said, oh my God, so I will do it. You cannot say it, right? Correct. So it happened. And I said, let's do it. And just work hard. I'm lucky to have a large network. So a lot of ideas, amazing projects that people never heard about. We always hear about the bad ones, but we never hear about the good ones, right? And then I personally know Alexander Osterveld and Yves Pignons. These are the developers of the business model Canvas. So my whole idea is to simplify project management. I want that you, in 2 hours, you know how to manage a project, not 200 days, 2 hours. So the simplification piece was my focus. And that kind of, as I saw it very clear how we need to simplify. And then the other big area is engage senior executives, because that's the other big problem, how to talk to them and say, listen, you play a big role, not just in the projects, but selecting, prioritizing, and following up the whole portfolio of projects can make a big difference. So kind of that passion to share with a bigger audience drove me to deliver the project, but it was exhausting.
Amazing. And how long did you take to write this book?
It's about 1 year. It's about 1 year end to end. BCBC is about 6 months, where it's almost every day that you work on it. But HBR, it's amazing. I had to work with 4 or 5 publications, editorials, great teams all the time, but HBR is really top notch. It's amazing, the team and the promotion that goes along. And just to share a bit of the amazing welcome, because I didn't expect a lot of, project management, when you mention those words, is not attractive. It's, boring, failure, right? But the target of the book for a year, it's about 10,000 copies. That's a good book for HBR in this kind of in the manuals domain. And the book has sold that in 4 months. So there is a lot of interest. It's people are happy to associate HBR brand with project management. So that's kind of the biggest compliment I could get, is that people appreciate this connection.
Amazing. Amazing. Congratulations. To get a book published by HBR is a very big achievement for an author.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Antonio, you also wrote, you've written 4 other books. Tell me a little bit about your other books.
Yeah, well, the first one, Ashtush, I think the first book is always like your first child, right? You don't have a clue. It's just something personal. You want to really test yourself if you can do that, right? You see so many people published and you say, can I do that? It seems impossible, right? It's really hard, but then you get into learning the techniques. You do everything wrong the first time. You start by writing the book, and no, you don't need to write the book. First the proposal, and then get an editor. And so you learn a lot the first book. That was about the focused organization. So all my books are about elevating project management to a higher level. In the first book, I refused to talk about project management, not in the title. It was hidden, but I was talking about strategic initiatives and linking to strategy implementation. The other 2 books, I started to talk about the project economy. One was the project revolution. So how everything around us is becoming project-based. Then I worked for Penguin. Penguin had a series, a new series on management, and they asked me, well, we want project management as the first book in the series. So I said, yes, that one is more practical, is very practical, with 9-10 principles for everybody to apply. So it's always around the same themes. Astros is about project management for everyone in a simple way. You can start using it straight away. And it's not very theoretical. It covers some concepts, but it's practical, hands-on, and that's what people appreciate.
Fantastic. So now I'm going to move to the last segment of our conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about project economy and project manifesto. As the creator of these concepts, tell me more about these initiatives.
Well, project economy is two things, Ashutosh. On a global level, macro level, is we're going to see more projects this decade with the public investments to recover from the pandemic, healthcare, economies than we've seen ever. More than when the US funded the Marshall Plan to recover, more than we saw when the financial crisis, 10 times more. So every time there's crisis, and this one is global, a lot of money coming from the public sector to relaunch the economy. So, but the topic that interests more is the type of work, the future of work. When in the past, the biggest part of work was operations, day-to-day activities. That's been for 80 years, but we've become so good at that we don't need resources in operations, very few, and automation. So what happens with the 80% of the people that were working in operations? They all move to work project-based in agile teams and flat structures. And that's the project economy. It's that most of the work is being carried out with project activities, self-managed team, not just the project managers. That was the past. Now it's everyone. And just to explain it a bit more clear is we talk about the gig economy, right? Gig economy, lots of freelancers working in a project for a company. The project is finished, they move to another company to do. The project economy is like the gig economy, but within your company, within your organization, right? So everybody in your company, most of them, the non-operational, they become freelancers. They belong to your company, so they move towards the priorities. These are the priorities of the 6 months. We put them there in projects and agile teams, then they move to them. So it's so disruptive. It's just, imagine the gig economy within your company. Imagine some companies are saying, let's remove all the job titles. We don't need job descriptions. Correct. That's the past, right? So imagine suddenly nobody has a job description in your company. You and your company that you're listening. Tomorrow, nobody has job descriptions. What a chaos, but what an opportunity. And then the project manifesto to finish. I always wonder why projects has no manifesto. When we do all projects, no, Agile was very smart and very much needed. I think when they launched the Agile manifesto, it was obvious that we needed to change things, and project management was not appropriate for IT projects. Correct. So, but then over the years, when I've been focusing on my passion and that focus on project, future of work, then I said, well, let's develop a manifesto like the one in Agile. And I know in February 12th or so, 2001 is signed the Agile. So around in 10 days, I'm going to promote heavily the project manifesto, saying, okay, we embrace Agile. We're not against Agile. We love Agile. But no, with Agile, you cannot solve all the projects. We need more. So that's the story behind the project manifesto.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Antonio, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about, project management, about what goes into managing projects, how critical they are for organizations. Thank you for talking to me about your book, the HBR Project Management Handbook. And also thank you for talking to me about project economy and project manifesto. Thank you again and good luck.
It was a pleasure, Ashutosh. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.